Hello, everybody, and welcome back to After Dark with Super Marcey, an adults only podcast. I'm your host, Super Marcey, and the sexy voice is just for the intro. Yes, we're back for another episode, and hopefully, this means the podcast is back on track for every couple of weeks. So, welcome back, and thank you all for being here. And I'm very excited for this episode. And before we get into what it's about and all the discussions, I'm here with my guest, a returning guest. You can hear him on both Indicator Cast and Imprint Cast. So welcome back, John Mathews. Hello and welcome back.
Hello, honored to be back. Thank you, Marcy. This has been a long time coming, this episode. We've been discussing it for a while, so very glad to finally do this episode. So yes, thank you for having me on.
Yes, this has been a a long brewing episode, but I think craziness of life is my only excuse as to why it's now. But yeah, it's a long brewing episode, and yeah, basically we'll get started. And as I've nicknamed the episode, Late Nights on SBS, and I think this could be a series of episodes, to be fair.
It could be, yeah. There were so many classics that played, so this is one of the big ones. So
Yeah.
not sure why, but well, obviously the content, but they played this a lot for some reason. So yeah, it's I think that's where we all first were exposed to this film.
Yeah, it was I don't know what it was. It was just, yeah, it was always on SBS and always advertised
Yes.
on SBS. It was in a lot of commercials as well. And I guess for those who may not have grown up in Australia during the 90s-ish era, SBS was still is a station on free-to-air TV, and it was kind of well known amongst the kind of teenage-ish age group as the more naughty channel, because SBS it was more risque at certain hours, and they would show a lot of foreign stuff and experimental stuff as well. So if you wanted to see anything interesting, SBS would be the place to go. And of course, you'd see advertisements for films like Weatherwoman and Weatherwoman Returns, and pretty much how this episode came about. But I guess before we get onto the films themselves, what are your late nights with SBS memories?
Yeah, there were many. I guess once again, it was more the Asian content, like stuff like Sex and Zen was one of the big ones that I remember vividly. The whole Sex and Zen series. Some films I can't recall, but I remember a lot of the sort of European art house type films would play there as well. But that basically Weatherwoman and Sex and Zen, those are some of the big ones that really stood out to me when I was growing up. But yeah, kind of I will not forget. So kind of shaped me to who I am today. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be who I am today if I didn't watch some of the weirdness on SBS. But I think some of my memories are like some of the anime that they used to have on,
Yes.
as well as a lot of the Eastern cinema. You mentioned like Sex and Zen. I remember, is it like Erotic Ghost Story?
Erotic Ghost Story. Yes, that was the other one. Yes.
That was one that played a lot, and I have memories of it, but I haven't seen it since. So I'm very curious to perhaps
and I think
cover that actually on a future episode.
A lot of the quite notorious Hong Kong films. I remember Robotrix was one that played. But they were groundbreaking because they brought like a lot of content, like even like stuff like South Park we were exposed to through SBS. They were the ones that brought it over here and had faith in that show. So quite a groundbreaking network. I'm surprised no one's done maybe a documentary or something on them, but that's something that really needs to be told.
Yeah.
Network.
Yeah, because I mean SBS isn't like what it was. I mean TV isn't like what it was, but there's nothing to really compare it to growing up because it was not mainstream TV at all.
No.
And it was almost taboo to be watching like after 11 on SBS, and then you can whisper about it later. Oh, I watched this sexy movie.
Talk about school the next day with your fellow
Yeah.
peers. Yeah, it was and just the curation, like they had some really talented people working there that were picking out these great films as well. So it was a really wonderful time, and we just don't get that anymore with traditional TV, that's for sure. Like there's
Yeah.
I mean, it's still around in a capacity, but I feel like it's just a standard news channel now. There's nothing too risque about it at all.
Yeah, it's not quite the same, but yeah, I think it was because of something like SBS that I was exposed to more world cinema, not
Yes.
just some, I guess, more mainstream Australian stuff or American or British. It was everywhere around the world. So sometimes there might be random Italian stuff or something from Japan. Like I distinctly remember, I think Audition I saw on SBS back in the day. So even things like that, it was exposed. I was exposed to by SBS, but then kind of as we got more like Foxtel cable, we had World Movies, which
Same.
did have a lot of the more risque, naughty movies as well. Which one thing leads to the other. So
the parental lock, they could go all out. Yes,
yeah.
but yeah, no, it was and the thing I loved about SBS, could definitely do a whole show on them, but also look, just that they treated the viewers with respect. Like they never played dub versions, they played the original versions with subtitles, which at the time I was like, I've got to read, what's this? But then eventually helped me learn to love foreign films, because I'm like, okay, I get it, like these are good movies as long as I can read it. Yeah, it's easy. So yeah, and I think it broke that kind of, I guess, I don't know, spell that or misconception. People thought that foreign movies are boring, but it'd be amazing. You just had to read, so it was great. They were never hardly ever dubbed. They were usually original. So
yeah, that was one of the other great things, was it was in the original language, so you could hear it, you could feel performances and what you're watching. And I was a bookworm as a kid, so reading subtitles was nothing to me. And
no problem at all.
And now everything needs closed captions / subtitles, because sound is just shit on everything, apparently.
Even YouTube videos, it pops up subtitles.
Yeah, so I really need subtitles on everything.
Everything, yeah.
Can I be bothered putting subtitles on my own video podcast? Probably not. I'll leave YouTube to try and do it.
Right.
If I had the time and energy, yeah, I would do that. But yeah, let's get straight to the first film for discussion with Weatherwoman.
素晴らしい。日本列島南部は高気圧に覆われ、全般的に晴れの一日になるそうです。しかし北海道では季節外れの大雪となっており、札幌では積雪40センチ。私今日は膝上10センチのスカートですが、このぐらいでしょうか。
君は僕のすべてだ。
And the plot synopsis for this one, which I'm reading from IMDb, which just take it as it is. I didn't write it, so
apparently Cedra, whoever that is, wrote it. So.
Yes.
Cedra.
Maybe. Let's see here. Keiko Nadachi is a substitute weather girl for Michiko Kawai, sorry, my pronunciation is terrible, on JTV. As a way of signing off, she hikes up her skirt and flashes her underwear at the audience. This move makes her an instant cult TV figure and a celebrity. Then Kari comes back to work and an all-out war erupts between the two of them, with an old high school flame of Keiko's trapped in the middle. John, do you want to give us some of the crew cast information?
Yes, definitely. So the director is Tomokai Hosoyama, written by Tetsu Adachi. Tomokai Hosoyama also wrote it as well. It stars the ever amazing Kei Mizutani. Also stars Takashi Sumnada and Yasuyori Mashida. Sorry. I wish it was in hiragana. It would be easy to read. And those are the three main ones, but it's based on the a manga, which was written and illustrated by Tetsu Adachi as well. So, and that was a manga that ran from 92 to 994, sort of a satirical manga.
Yeah, so I haven't read the manga, and I haven't seen the anime that they made of that either. My only experience is with this film and the other film we'll be discussing. What about you? Did you have any, or have you, since seeing the film, checked any of those out?
Yes, I should have went back and rewatched it, but I saw the anime many years ago. I think because I was trying to get more Weatherwoman related content, so I saw it. It was an AOV, so kind of made for video anime. Yeah, from memory, it wasn't as wild as the movie, but I have to go back and revisit it. It was more of a I guess more of a political, not political, but I guess sort of corporate satire. This is going back, but it didn't have the insane craziness of the film. But yeah, I'll rewatch it, but I have seen the anime, but the movie to me is much more memorable. But I haven't read the manga, but out of curiosity, I think it's one I might even track down and give it a read sometime.
If you do, you'll have to let us know about it.
Yes.
So yeah, let's get straight into some discussion on the film. So yeah, look, I really didn't remember much of this before I sat down for this rewatch. I kind of remembered the first time, like, she flashes at doing the weather and some little bits in between, but it was almost like a first time watch, and then kind of having memories like, oh yeah, I remember this bit and that bit, and like the very beginning, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this, and it's such a weird, quirky film. But as I'm watching it, I'm like, is this just the Japanese version of Showgirls? Because they do kind of have a fair bit in common and would be an interesting double feature. And that was my complete takeaway. It's like Showgirls, but it's Japanese, and it's ludicrous and insane, and what a movie. I was hooked when I was doing this most recent watch, because I was trying to remember bits, and it's just like one thing goes to another, and oh my god, it's escalating even more. And in between, there's the naughty and smutty stuff, so to speak. So there is a decent amount of nudity, and there is a fair damn amount of degradation towards men, and there's degradation towards one woman. For some reason, it's just the one woman. I don't really know what the movie was trying to say with that part, but my thoughts on the movie are so scrambled because it's a scrambled movie. It's insane. But Sean, what are your thoughts on Weatherwoman?
Yeah, I really like Weatherwoman, and same with you. It's been many years since I saw it, and I remember bits and pieces. Like I do remember, I'm like, did it go full Power Rangers at one stage, something like that? And it did. It really did.
It really it went like it was kind of like Power Rangers mixed with Avatar: The Last Airbender type of stuff with the weather elements.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like they've got their own powers, and I didn't remember. I remember had these images of it, and I couldn't remember if it was that crazy because I'd probably seen about maybe 10 years ago. I rewatched it on DVD, but it had been a while. So and the rewatch, and I still like the film. It's like I said, it's very scattered. I don't know what it's really trying to say. I mean, I guess we can discuss that later, but I guess commenting maybe on the gender politics in Japanese workplaces and positions of power. But yeah, it's still it's fun. That's the big thing about it. It's really fun. Moves at a fast pace. Yeah. Yes, I guess it still has its smuttier moments. Some would argue that this is what they call a pink film, but I don't believe it is. I believe it's more of a comedy. But yeah, for me, it was just a really fun rewatch, and yeah, a lot of things I couldn't remember. But obviously, the iconic flashing of the Weatherwoman, that's what everyone remembers. It's kind of on all the posters, and that was one of the big key moments that I recall. But yeah, it was still stood up for me as a really fun film. And
yeah, it's definitely more of a weird comedy than anything else, but it does have some serious moments that you might not expect to be serious, and then moments you don't think should be comedic are played for comedy. And there is, as I mentioned, there is just one female character in this film who just can't catch a break. She goes through the worst, and I was going to say the shittiest, but literally
the shittiest.
There is shit. And I don't quite get that aspect of it, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it'll come to me as we talk about it. But I guess that character is a side character, whereas Keiko is the main character, but it ends up being more about not just like a weather woman, but actually controlling the weather for some reason.
Literally.
So it literally means like weather woman. And my thoughts are so random. Like towards the end, there is a whole dance number that was very random, and it was very reminiscent for me of Showgirls. Some of the dancing felt very similar, and it was nonsensical like that.
Las Vegas style stage and everything.
Yeah. It's very random, but it's such a strange film. But I think you're right that it does have something to say of sort of about the workplace culture and gender culture at the time.
Yeah, it's interesting because so watching in the rewatch, like she obviously the Keiko character, Kei Mizutani, is getting all this power and success, but because she's a woman, and obviously there's a scene where these, I guess the moral standards police are there to say, you can't keep doing this. You have to go back to your old ways, and trying to take her down off her pedestal, I guess. So that's quite interesting how, she's finally getting some sort of power and it gets taken away from her. Just things like that. But once again, there is like this other female character that's being degraded in some way. So I'm not sure. It's a bit of a, it's that's the thing. I'm not sure what it's really trying to say, but maybe if we discuss it, we can figure out what it's meant to be.
Yeah, it's really bizarre because that one character, I think it was Michiko, I think. She was the weather woman, and then she gets replaced by Keiko because of the panty flash thing.
Doing the hentai show, pervert.
Then she does then she tries to get a job back, and then she has to do this perverted show where she does get shit on and but then she thinks she's gonna work with the rival that comes in, who's I think the daughter of the head of the TV thing. And basically then Keiko, instead of just being like a maid to clean, she turns her into a slave of sorts.
Yes.
And
with her tongue.
Yes. Dry me with your tongue. Yeah. No, peace out, love. But then, like, after this is exposed and this is kind of like meant to be the downfall, she's still there, but she's doing the same job for the other lady who doesn't give a shit she helped her and went through this, and just continues to treat her really badly.
Yeah, it was part of her plot to get her, kind of exposed. That character, it's just the one flaw I'd say with that movie is just that character. It's a bit odd where she fits and what. Because if
Yeah,
you take that,
because there's no resolution to her character really.
no, like
Either. She's still just left
she's
there.
Still, left there, being a maid or a slave of some sort. Yes.
Yeah, it's a very confusing part, but aside from that, there is a lot of interesting stuff because, like we see from the start that even during school, Keiko was very headstrong, didn't take shit from anybody. And she just comes in and she's like, I'm a person of power. I'm going to get what I want. And she does.
Yes.
But then, like, after her downfall, it's kind of become something else for her. And it's very weird that she gets these weather controlling powers for some reason.
Yes. Yes. And she would literally come back as some sort of superhero. But she actually was in Power Rangers, Kei Mizutani, as an actress, so in a very similar costume. So I don't know which one came first, but yes, and she comes back with these sort of powers, and they both have obviously the CEO's daughter and Keiko. They both sort of have sort of mesmerizing powers over their audience, especially a certain song scene where it's very mesmerizing and everyone's kind of swaying to it. It's very, very strange.
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast between how Keiko sings her Weatherwoman song as she's gotten popular, and then once she's had her downfall and the other one rises up, I just can't remember the character's name, and then she has her completely different Weatherwoman song.
Almost like a trance.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because it's this really bizarre power dynamic between two very headstrong women who kind of want the same thing but don't at the same time, and it culminates in this very bizarre but entertaining battle.
Yes.
And it's a weird movie with, if you take out the smuttiness, it's not necessarily a movie that you would think of that had sexy things in there.
No,
but then you have that in there, and I think obviously that was the selling point for this cheeky movie with naughty Weatherwomen, and then I'm sure that took off in a porn craze.
Yes. Well, yeah, because it feels obviously, like I said, that scene where she's cleaning her with a tongue and whatnot. That's just there for thrills, I guess. Just to get that audience, keep them on, I guess, for that sort of AV audience. But if you take that out, it's a comedy, and the director has described himself. I think he said once he described himself as the John Waters of Japan, which kind of makes sense because like it's very Waters-esque and just how over top it is. And yeah, if you took out some of the smutty elements, like I said, it's just a comedy. And once again, I would not consider it a Roman porno or pink film, but it's interesting. The two very strong female.
Yeah, it's interesting with that John Waters comparison, because that did come into mind, that there's a lot of kind of John Waters-esque elements, and now I'm just picturing like a 1950s set John Waters Weatherwoman feud movie, and we kind of need that.
Yes, we do. Come on, we'll get Waters out of retirement.
Please do it. You just need to. Yes.
Oh. But yeah, it's right. And look, and obviously the CEO and I also commenting on CEOs in Japan, like they're really old. Like, because I've been to Japan many times. My partner's Japanese. We go over all the time, and I've met with her sister works at a company, and the CEO is really old. Like the guy's like 90 years old. So I think it's like also commenting there as well. It's quite funny how he's like quite love struck and obviously doesn't want to say anything, but it seems to be under the control of Keiko. But it's interesting comment on that, how Japanese CEOs are very much like that and still like that today. These very old school old men who run these companies as well.
Yeah, it's it's certainly a weird and interesting movie, and at least I think it's kind of ripe for a bit of a rediscovery with people, because I don't generally hear this at all being talked about. It's almost forgotten. And because, you know, both of us are physical media people. So,
Yes.
you know, you can see there's some of your movies behind you if you're watching the video. And, you know, even this is kind of hard to find on physical media. And I think that would be like on DVD.
Yeah, DVD
from
and
ages ago.
yeah, like an old Madman Eastern Eye, which was I blew the dust off it, and once again, it's a really old looking, almost like very poor quality. Like it needs a proper remaster of this film. But even just like general reviews, and I was looking around doing some research, I couldn't find any real reviews on this film. Like people actually doing some video essays, there's nothing on it, which is quite interesting. It is largely forgotten. I think maybe just because it has that sort of cult status in Australia, but yeah, it's one that not many people talk about. But I think it's right for rediscovery. I think it's a real midnight movie. Definitely is.
Oh, definitely. I would love to see some kind of a Blu-ray restoration for this, like probably just this one. And we'll get to the other one shortly. But I think that would be really cool. It would be, you know, I think films like this we need to talk about and put it out there that there should be a better copy. Someone should get on this stuff. But, you know, this is only a small podcast. I don't know if I'll help in the rediscovery of this film, but I certainly hope so. And if this movie suddenly becomes everywhere, I'm just going to take the credit for it, or we'll take the credit for it.
Yeah, it looks, and I mean, it's shot on like 35mm, but it looks like most copies look pretty bad because it's an old like Video Master. So yeah, to see this in all its prime, like a really nice restoration, it would be really nice as well. But yeah, that would be big. But interesting. A few other things about this film. That infamous Japanese cannibal is in this movie as well. Issei Sagagawa, who actually he's just has a small segment when they're talking about her on. I think he's one of the guests on the panel, but he was a cannibal that he got off somehow. He got away with it, and he became a celebrity in Japan. So he's in the movie. So keep an eye out there.
I actually didn't realize that, and I know who that is. It just didn't click.
Yeah, he's got glasses and he's like sitting on a panel, and yeah, it's a creepy guy. Anyway, yeah, it's very odd how he's in. Maybe put him in once again. Maybe that's sort of John Waters-esque style, just sort of bizarre sort of humor. But yeah, it's
very random.
Trivia, very random bit trivia.
Yeah. Well, we can wrap up this discussion of this film. So I guess rating out of 5 and final thoughts.
Oh, yes. Yes, I was trying to think I was leaning towards, because after rewatching, I was thinking more 3.5, but I think after thinking about it again, I think I may even go up to 4. I think 4 stars for Weatherwoman. I think because even though it's a bit muddled, it's entertaining as hell. It's funny. It's sexy in bits, I guess. For me, this film was a bit of a, I guess, awakening for me when I saw it, because I was quite, and that kind of sent me down the rabbit hole of all these other sort of Japanese, Roman porno Nakatsu films. Yeah, it's funny. It's got all types of themes. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it, and I think more rewatches I'll hopefully make more sense of it. It's a bit of a puzzle, this film, but yeah, 4 stars for me. It's one that I'll go back to more regularly now that I've rewatched it.
Yeah. I give it 3.5 epic Weatherwoman fights out of 5.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely think I'll return to this again, probably in the not too distant future, because I'm kind of fascinated by it, and I will continue to just be like, somebody needs to restore this film. We need physical copies.
Come on.
It certainly takes you back to, like, in this time capsule kind of thing, to sort of the late 90s, being that young kid. I say kid, but 11, 12, 13, 14, around that age, kind of discovering movies like this and being like, oh, so movies can be really different from other places.
Yes. And I think also, yeah, for me, when I was sort of, well, I'd seen, adult material and stuff, but this was the first time I'd seen sort of weird adult, which like quite like S&M themes, like she's being whipped and just and a lot of obviously the sub and dom and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting, because I never seen anything quite like it at the time. It seemed more sort of 80s, like I guess X-rated type films and stuff, but never anything like this. So yeah, it was also, like I said, a bit of an awakening for me as well, because it kind of, I wouldn't say steered my life, but I think I began to have more of an interest in Japanese culture because of this film, funny enough, because that kind of then when I was in high school I studied Japanese, so I think it kind of pointed me in a direction which is quite interesting. Seeing it at that age, I was like, wow, I really, I guess, connected to it in a strange way. So yeah, quite a powerful film in that way.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And yeah, there is a fair bit of that BDSM in this film, and it certainly goes both ways. If you enjoy seeing the Weatherwoman in her sexy dominatrix outfit spanking someone, this movie might be for you.
Oh yes. And Kei Mizutani would obviously, she's not in the sequel, but she would go on to, she'd become like a B-movie queen, I guess they called her in Japan. She would do a lot of films very similar afterwards. I think there's one called Terminatrix, where she's a dominatrix Terminator. I've seen a few of those, but they're all just direct-to-video stuff. And she's actually running a bar now called D-Night in Tokyo. So if you're in Tokyo, apparently you can visit her, and she's quite happy to talk about Weatherwoman. So, and I follow her on Instagram, and she's still very, she likes to talk about Weatherwoman. Someone mentions this, she's like, oh, thank you very much. Like she's not ashamed of this series. Some actresses, they move on, they don't want to talk about it, that past, but she's quite proud of Weatherwoman, and she'll, in her Instagram stories, will pop up a bit. She'll show the manga and stuff, and so cool. Yeah, she's quite one with the fans. So if you follow Kei Mizutani on Instagram, she's a very lovely person. I've commented a few times. She's and she's responded personally, like, oh yeah, like thank you for saying that. So she's she's definitely one with her fans as well.
That's pretty awesome. I think she's fantastic in the film, and she's got such a unique look. Like she's gorgeous, but the way she plays it's really cool. And that end pink angel-esque costume is amazing. I need my own costume. But yeah, maybe we'll have to tag her in the podcast when it goes up, and hopefully she would enjoy it. But this Terminator dominatrix sounds interesting, so we may need to visit this at a future episode.
Oh, definitely. And sumo vixens, and I saw more because as a teenage boy at the time, I've seen this, I hunted down what else has she done, and
maybe we'll need to do a podcast dedicated to her with some of these other films. That would be
cool. Definitely. I just want to mention as well, the director kind of vanished after this film, so we can get on to Weatherwoman Returns, but that was his last film he made, which is quite interesting. So not sure, he's still alive apparently, but yeah, quite interesting. He kind of exited the industry, but you think this would be kind of a good starting point of the career. So I'm not sure what happened there, but once again,
maybe he felt like this was his masterpiece and he couldn't top it, so he was done. Leave when you're at the top.
Yes, drop them, because he was a pink Roman porno director. So throughout the 80s, did a lot of that genre. And once again, Roman porno, I say that, and I'm wearing the Roman porno shirt here.
Very nice, very nice.
It was just a massive genre, mainly in the 70s and 80s, shot on film. And look, it's not porn because it's softcore. They had to obviously cover it up. But you had all these genres like horror, giallo, comedy, pearl diving movies. And basically the rule was that you could make any movie you wanted, horror, but it had to have sex every 10 minutes. So these directors would go and make these films. So he was in that sort of camp of, and a lot of prestigious directors would come out of the pink film genre. So yeah, he was from that sort of that league of pink film directors, and that's why I say this. It doesn't feel like a pink film, but people argue it is. But that's a bit of background on that genre. Obviously, the AV market came along, JAV, and it completely killed it because obviously everything just shot on video. But so there's a bit of interesting history there for a bit of background.
Interesting, yeah. And let's get on to discussing Weatherwoman Returns.
では今後ともよろしくお願いします。明日天気になれ。
And I have the plot off IMDb, which was written by someone called Melrick. So here we go. Keiko, but not the same Keiko, is the new owner of a local television station, and she's determined to succeed no matter what. But the rival TV station will stop at nothing to crush her. And one by one, Keiko's new programs are humiliatingly sabotaged. When the Weatherwoman falls victim to an underhanded trick, Keiko decides that she's through being nice. While filling in for the stricken reporter, she flushes her underwear, making her weather forecast an instant hit. What follows is an outrageously sexy contest which judges skimpy costumes and arm wrestling instead of beauty and talent to determine who will be the reigning Weatherwoman. Not the best written plot or description, and I feel like that gives the movie a bit too much credit in the sexy department. But yeah, it's kind of bizarre that it's called Weatherwoman Returns, but it is not at all a sequel. It is a sort of remake ish type thing. I don't know if this is more in line with the manga or anything, but John, do you want to give us the my god, the credits and performance actors?
Definitely. So it's directed once again by Tomoaki Hosoyama, written by Tetsu Adachi once again, who also did the manga. But it's different. So we don't have Kei Mizutani. So in her place, I guess, kind of, if it's the same character or not, we have Misa Akai. We also have Kiyomo Ito and Itsuki Keito and Takashi Sumida as well. So the main cast there. Misa Akaya, it's interesting because she didn't do many movies after this. I think she kind of vanished, but she was in one of my favorite Japanese horror films of all time, which is Splatter Naked Blood, which is a really notorious, very nasty Japanese horror film. But she did this and Splatter Naked Blood, and that was about it. But
that is so like, you know, that I discovered that film in the recent years through 31 Days of Horror, and
yes,
I fucking loved that movie, and I didn't click that this Keiko was in that movie, and now it's like why I'm staring at her going, why do I know you? Kind of, you look semi-familiar.
Gouging your eyeballs out or something. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that connection there. So, but it's interesting. She only did the 2 films and kind of vanished. So, but yeah, look, it's a weird one, and once again, very confusing because I remember when I had because I don't know if I saw this on SBS. I don't think I did. I just remember the original Weatherwoman. I saw this first on DVD as part of the box set. And I remember I saw them back to back, and I still remember I was highly confused. I'm like, is this a prequel? Is it the same character? Is it a sequel? Because I didn't know. I had no context. And I thought maybe it was meant to be like an origin story or something because she seems younger than the Mizutani character. So I couldn't make sense of it. But yes, first time I watched it, not the best memories, and I was confused. I'll say that by who.
Yeah, it's a strange one because it's not a sequel, but it's not quite a remake because it is quite different. And as you mentioned about sort of the workplace and business politics, that feels more relevant to this film because the Keiko character inherits this TV station of her father who had passed away. So she needs to try and come up with ways for this to make money and get out of debt. And then it's the rival station who is like wants to sabotage them and put them out of business and all this stuff. So there's a lot of this going on for the first part of the film, and it's not Keiko who's this very headstrong person. It's the rival character, and I think the budget just went to giving her the most outrageous costumes, which is certainly a highlight in the film as well. And there is a little bit of the sexy naughtiness, but it's not to the extent of the previous film. I think there's just a more nudity that you see, but it's just in a matter of fact way than anything else. And I do think that I did see this on SBS because I distinctly remember certain scenes from this film, and the schoolgirl outfit with the flashing is one. I remember that scene. I distinctly remember parts of the end with the contest.
Yes.
So it's those are the bits and everything else. I'm like, I kind of remember this, but yeah, it's strange because you don't really know what it's meant to be, and that's why maybe I'm wondering if maybe it's more in tone with the manga. I don't know because I haven't read it, but certainly there's a lot of workplace politics, and it's not so much about as much of humiliation as people go through in the other film. It's really focused on from the beginning just the meanness of this woman to take over, and Keiko being the more innocent one, and there's no like school character who's after her or anything like that either. So there's quite a lot of changes, but I think what hurts this is it's not outrageous and it's not all that fun. It's more of a straightforward story with some quirky things here and there, and it's not a difficult watch. It's the same length as the previous one, which is like 85 minutes or so. This doesn't really amount too much. Whereas I think they did a pretty decent job of this Keiko being quite likable from the start, so you're on her side. But yeah, otherwise it just felt a little pointless. Maybe the other one, let's do another one. I don't quite know, but it is bizarre that this feels very scaled back. What about for you?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. A lot more restraint for some reason. I thought that the sequels would get more wacky as they went up, but obviously this one pulls it back. But yeah, the Keiko character, is a bit more naive and innocent, completely opposite to the Mizutani character. But yes, it's just not as funny as the first Weatherwoman. There is humor, obviously when she gets sabotaged and they swap out some meat wrap or something that takes over.
The wank jerk off something like that was genuinely funny when she's expecting this comedy troupe and these like dirty it's the wanker jerk off or whatever the name was, and it's actually quite funny. And then when they're performing for this special and the crowd is just deadpan, like no reaction.
You literally hear crickets or just the wind blowing.
That is quite funny, but it doesn't quite get as crazy or as silly as that, which is unfortunate. I mean, next to the costumes, I guess.
Yeah, the costumes, like the villains' costumes, like. And like I said, and that's the thing, like, it's like there's two worlds, like it's quite restraint, the office and it's quite grounded in reality, but the rival network, she's like a cartoon villain. Like it's just, if you're going to go all out, just go all out if you want to make it crazy. But yeah, it's a lot more strain. And I don't say boring, but it doesn't move as at the pace of the first film. It tends to just slog a little bit here and there. And yeah, like I said, there's nudity, but yeah, it's like her just in like the onsen, the hot spring. It's not like nothing really erotic or you know, and like some of the like a new judge or something. Like it's
the other little bits are with that like the villain, I suppose, getting the men that she's tasked to help her out to do the sexual favors, but then they end up turning on her. So maybe that's not the right way to treat people.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And she's quite the, you know, I guess the Dom character. I guess she's quite a, you know, to her male servant. She's like, oh, I want it when I want it. He's like, oh, but it's the morning. She's like, I don't care. Also during the day or something like that. Is very strange, the dialogue.
It is. Yeah. And I guess we didn't really bring it up with the other film, but there's I guess in that first part is a big thing with the Keiko character in that first one is she's just getting herself off constantly.
Oh yes,
whereas the villain in this film sort of does that, but with other people as well. It's a weird contrast.
It is, yeah, and of course I completely forgot about that. The toilet scene, which plays quite significantly. That's the first shot of the film is the, you know, Keiko in the toilet in the first film, you know, getting off, and but yeah, the villain does that, but you know, with her manservants. Quite a contrast there.
I mean, the similarities, I suppose, because there's still women, but there's also the panty flash that gets the program popular, so they still have that kind of thing in there, and then a rivalry, but the rivalry in this film was like before that ever happens.
It's
inflamed more that now she wants to really take her down and blah 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 stuff.
It feels like it takes long to get going. Like obviously flash, but not maybe till I think maybe an hour in or something, or maybe 45 something like that. It's not. It takes a while because
it's at least halfway through.
Maybe halfway through, yeah.
Sure.
Because it's her sabotaging the network with the rap group or doing this and that. So, but yeah, it takes a while for that. But obviously, I guess that's the key moment. That's all over the covers as well. Her and the. It looks a little wrong, the covers for this. Like, I mean, just the artwork, because it looks like she looks quite young and like
I think both covers feel very just weirdly 90s.
Very nice. Yeah.
Just like, ew, this is titillating, isn't it?
Yes.
But
but I mean, then that's how they delivered the news. I mean, not obviously flashing, but it was they have like these big sets. Like so I've seen old Japanese weather TV programs. They just like pull the sun over and move it like it was. And the Weatherwoman is a lot more interactive than now. People are just in front of digital screens. It's just you know, and people just check their phones. They don't even watch the Weatherwoman anymore. But it was quite an event when the Weatherwoman would come on TV. So
it's a bit of a time capsule to a point in time in in Japanese culture, or however you want to say it. That like the weather was an event. We need to watch it, and they put that a lot in this. Like, what's something people really need to know? Well, the weather. And back then, we didn't have our phones. We had to get the newspaper or watch it on the news or the programs or whatever. If you had cable back then, you had the 24-hour weather channel. But that was the thing, it was something you definitely needed. And I can understand that being a big thing. And it makes sense in the context of both films.
And maybe a younger generation wouldn't understand Weatherwoman, because they probably don't even know what that is. But absolutely, it is a time capsule.
That could be a new like TikTok craze to do the weather in an outrageous way for your video.
Yes. 90s style set.
Yes. But if it's on the internet these days or social media, you probably can't flash your panties.
Yes.
They'll probably ban you or whatever.
The Zuckerbots will take you down.
Yeah. But these films definitely, just the titles remind me of a certain point in time with discovering films, foreign films, loving SBS, trying to sneak as much SBS as possible after like 10 o'clock at night. Not so much, after being 13, 14, but still, you don't want your parents to accidentally walk in on you watching The Weatherwoman.
No, it's a
And
no.
I'm pretty sure I saw my parents might have watched this at one point. Honestly, it's possible.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, SBS and world movies were big at my house because, Italian parents, they get some Italian content on there.
Yeah.
But also, my dad and mum liking to watch films, and, foreign films were just normal in my house. It wasn't just Italian films.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You don't realize the importance of how it was for families until I started hearing yourself, and like our friend William Wong told me that, like, it was very important in his household because of all the Cantonese films. Like, and I didn't think about that, but obviously for people who just come to Australia, migrants, it was a very important network. So yeah, that's another thing I didn't really think of, how it was.
Yeah, because I think SBS used to run news in different languages from different countries.
Yeah.
You'd have to tune in at a certain time.
Broadcast like Japanese
for
TV
that.
at the end. Yeah, I remember these Japanese right at the end too. Yeah.
But yeah, it was. But yeah, it was. I mean, aside from seeing films like this and just being exposed to foreign movies, would be why I don't try to limit myself in what I watch, and that's how I've been for a long time. But also, with my dad's influence, I suppose, that he loves a lot of things about Japan and Japanese films. So there were some classics that I think I had seen, and stuff like that. So it was, everything that wasn't American was classy in the household.
Was considered. Yeah, no, that's just all the old Kurosawas and stuff was through SBS, and that's what really gave me a love for Japanese cinema. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that probably wraps up the discussion on Weatherwoman Returns. Final thoughts and rating out of 5.
Yeah, so like I said, it's I just found it a bit dull. I think at the end, just because I'm comparing it to something before which I consider much better. So yeah, like I said, just not as funny. A lot more strain. It just feels like a pretty pointless remake of the original. And even the final, I guess, rivalry scene between the two. There's no epic battles, nothing like that. She just
it's arm wrestling and trivia.
Trivia, just standard game show stuff. And it's just it's not one I'll really revisit too often. So I gave it 2.5. I don't really hate it, but compared to the first one, it's just not as good. But it was just I guess because I was comparing it to what came before it. But I'd say 2.5. It's worth a watch if you like the first film, just as a curiosity.
Yeah, definitely. I think as a curiosity, it is interesting to look at it and compare and see how different they are with little similarities. And I think out of 5, 2.5 for me as well. Much like in the previous film, this film, you don't really see it, you hear it. Has a scene involving crap as well, and I gotta say, they really like the ultimate humiliations with these films.
Yes, someone literally explodes, but we won't spoil it.
Yes, I mean we can. Spoilers can happen, but it would be interesting to see a bit of a rediscovery with these films or similar films that I think kind of fallen off the radar a little bit because I don't know why. Because
they're not out there in the public conscious. I guess they had their days on TV, and then obviously the early DVD era, we got some local DVDs, but there's been no reissues, new remasters. They're not on streaming, that's for sure. As you probably know, if someone wants to see, you have to hunt down maybe a porn site might host it, but it's
really bizarre that and it's even then, it's not easy to find on some very obscure, not in English porn site. And I don't really even consider this to be like softcore porn.
No, it's strange. It's on there because, especially the sequel. Like because I had to dig out the DVD set, but I tried to find online, and it was like some Russian porn site. It popped up. I'm like, I guess this will do if I need to watch it. But
yeah, and even then, like the only way I managed to like find any trace of it being as a video file, I suppose, was actually typing in the Japanese title. And that's how it came up. It didn't come up in English. And there are several other films that aren't this with a name similar, Weatherwoman or The Weatherwoman, which aren't it either. So it's one of those weird ones.
Add to the confusion. I think in some territories it's called Weather Girl, or it's got a few names as well to add to the confusion. So glad you could find it. But it's a shame because it's not out there. That's the problem. It's largely forgotten. So I think if someone can reissue it or get it out there, I think it's a midnight movie. Like definitely, it'll be a massive cult hit if someone put it out again. So.
Yeah, for sure. We might have to send this to a whole bunch of physical media distributors. Get your ass in gear, boys. That wraps up this podcast episode, and it was great to revisit something that I hadn't really seen for so long. And I think late nights on SBS might be a running series on this show because there's a lot more to discuss. And if you know, meaning if you're in the same age bracket and lived in Australia, one thing I would love to have a few people to talk about is when SBS showed Eat Carpet, which was the weirdest show with short movies that they would show like late on a Saturday night, purposely stay up to watch it. And it was bizarre. It was weird, but it's so worth talking about. But I think we'll definitely be back on the late nights on SBS topic on this show.
Definitely. There's a lot. You could make it a whole series. It's its own podcast, really. It's its own thing. So there's a lot. And I swore I saw. Speaking of Italian, I swore I saw maybe some Tinto Brass on there as well. I'm pretty sure I did. So there's so many that you can pull out from the well. But and just memories, SBS memories as well. That would be fun to discuss too.
Oh, definitely. I like the idea of revisiting late nights on SBS every few months on this show. So I think it's going to be a thing.
The animation block, everything they had, it was really
absolutely. And there's so many stories to tell. But on that note, we'll wrap up the show, and you can find After Dark with Super Marcey on all your podcast streaming players, whichever one you like to use. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, all of that. Just search After Dark with Super Marcey. And you can look it up on the socials. There's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it. I will hopefully be a lot more active on there. For all the links and socials, you can check out the link tree, which will be linked in the show notes. But the address is linktr.ee/afterdarknetwork. And for me personally, you can also go on Linktree and type in Super Marcey. That also has all my socials. But I am Super Marcey on all the socials. I am Super_Marcey on Letterboxd. And you can keep track of all the things I'm watching for various podcasts such as this, and then be kind of shocked, or I don't know, that I'll be talking about some movies, because that's how it's felt lately. John, if people want to hear the podcast you're on or find you on Letterboxd or whatever, do you want to drop those for us?
Yeah, definitely. So with my good friend Tony Meaches, who you had on here recently, we do the Imprint cast together. So you can find us Imprint cast on all the podcast platforms. I also do Indicator Cast as well. That's on all the podcast platforms too. On Facebook, you can just find me, John Mathews 1T, and I'm also on Letterboxd, John Mathews with 1T. So you can follow all my watching there as well. And and see all the content, which, like you said, Marcy, was quite erotic this week. I watched pornography. I was watching pornography.
I was watching pornography. I literally made the meme of the last 3 things I watched, which is all smutty. Added the Homer picture on the meme. I was watching pornography. Just changed the line a little bit, and I sent it to you, and I sent it to Bede, because I was looking at my letterbox and like, I was just watching pornography.
Now, Marcy, what was this Moe's? What was the place? Yes, but you find us there on the letterbox.
Yes.
Yes,
and check out Imprint and Indicator Cast, and I'll have links in the show notes as well, and you'll probably hear me on those at some point in the future again. We like going on each other's podcasts because we're good friends and we just love chatting movies with each other, so always fun. And that wraps up the show, and until next time, what happens after dark stays after dark. Stay spicy, everybody. And flash your panties. Not really. Bye-bye.
See ya. See you then.
あたしゃお天気